Most one-sided marriages do not start because someone was selfish or stopped caring. They begin with one person being a little more reliable, a little more steady, a little more willing to step in when something could not wait. 5 years later, that same person is paying the rent, covering the emergencies, handling the school fees, and carrying the stress. And both people still believe they are contributing equally. Ask the person carrying everything when it changed, and they will not be able to tell you. They can show you the bank transfers. They can point to the bills. But there is no single moment they can point to, because there was no single moment. There was a pattern, and that pattern does something that surprises most people. The person paying for everything usually ends up with less power, not more. They become the one who cannot afford to stop. From the outside, they look like the one in control. From the inside, the control is an illusion, held up entirely by the fact that everyone around them is depending on them to keep going. Most people hear a topic like this and immediately start looking for a villain, the lazy spouse, the spender, the person gaming the system. That is the wrong place to look, because in most marriages, this pattern does not show up in one obvious, ugly moment. It sneaks in through 100 small, ordinary ones. I will handle this one. You got the last one. It is easier if I just pay it. You're not looking for a bad person. You are looking at a bad design. And bad design does not care about love or intentions or promises. It runs on its own logic, and that logic keeps pushing more weight in one direction until the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. And the trap often begins with a single sentence. I'll just handle it this time. Repeated over years, that is how a household ends up built on one person. Now let us talk about the split. Because this is where it actually begins. You see, not all bills are the same kind of bill. Some bills are obligations, rent, school fees, insurance, transport, loan payments. These bills do not negotiate. They show up anyway. You cannot delay them. You either pay them or the household takes damage. Then there are the other kinds of bills, such as eating out, subscriptions, clothes, gifts. All these can be cut when things get tight. They are flexible. Now, when couples first start dividing expenses, both types get treated as if they are the same. One partner takes some, the other takes some, and on paper, the numbers look balanced. But those two types of bills do not behave the same way when life puts pressure on them. The partner carrying obligations is carrying the household's survival. The partner carrying the flexible stuff is carrying the household's comfort. Those are not the same job. When costs go up, and they always go up, obligations go up harder. Rent increases. School fees increase. Insurance increases. The partner holding those bills has nowhere to adjust. The partner holding the flexible bills can cut back, and that cutback looks responsible. But what is really happening is that one side of the marriage absorbed all the pressure while the other side escaped it. We will come back to what that gap looks like after a few years. For now, keep that in mind. Now the second thing shows up, reliability. In every household, one partner tends to handle money more consistently than the other, more on time, more organized, more willing to sit with the discomfort of paying something before it becomes an emergency. That partner becomes the default, not because anyone agreed to it, but because repetition proved they would handle it when nobody else did. Think of it like a team project where one person always shows up and one person sometimes shows up. After a while, the person who always shows up stops waiting and just does the work, not because they agreed to, because waiting was more painful than doing. This is why one partner ends up getting the calls from the school, the panic texts about broken appliances, the invisible job of making sure the month does not fall apart. Nobody assigned it. It just migrated toward the person least likely to drop it. Let us put real numbers on this because the pattern is easier to see when it is concrete. Imagine a household where one partner brings home about $7,000 a month and the other brings home around $3,500. Together, $10,500. At the start, the split feels fair. The higher earner takes rent at $2,800, school fees around $1,200, the car payment at $600, and insurance at $400. That is $5,000 a month in obligations. The lower earner takes groceries at $800, utilities at $300, and household extras around $400. $1,500 total, mostly flexible. Both people are contributing. The household runs. Nobody is arguing. Now run one normal year. Rent goes up to $3,100. School fees rise to $1,400. Insurance ticks up to $450. The car needs a $900 repair. A parent has a medical situation that costs $1,200. The child needs tutoring at $300 a month. Every single one of those increases lands on obligations. Every single one of them lands on the higher earner. Their monthly load has climbed from $5,000 to around $6,200, and the one-off expenses came out of their savings because that is where the emergency fund lives. The lower earner's side went up too. Groceries rose by 100, utilities by 50. But when pressure hit, they trimmed the flexible items. Fewer extras. Their total contribution stayed close to $1,500. Nobody cheated. Nobody was even having a bad year. And yet, after one perfectly normal year, the household moved even further onto one person's back. Run that for 5 years. Run it for 10, and the gap stops being a gap. It becomes the shape of the marriage. But here is where things starts getting interesting. Because once that pattern hardens, something else starts to shift. Money stops being the main problem. It starts with the bills that cannot fail. Rent, school, transport, insurance. Nobody argues about it because the numbers seem to match the incomes. But underneath the numbers, one partner is now the backstop. The one thing standing between the household and collapse. Then the money problem becomes an everything problem. The forgotten bill, the unexpected repair. None of these get formally assigned. They land wherever they are most likely to actually get handled, on the person who handles things. And here is where the trap gets much deeper. Because one person is not only carrying more bills, they are now carrying the right to make mistakes for both adults. The partner holding the obligations cannot take risks anymore. They cannot quit a job they have come to hate. They cannot rest through a real illness. They cannot take 6 months to retrain or figure out a different direction. Meanwhile, the other partner still has room to slow down, pivot, or explore. One partner's stability is quietly funding the other partner's freedom. And the strange part is that the partner with more freedom often does not realize it is being paid for. It feels like their own. By this point, a whole life has been built around the imbalance. A particular house, a particular school, a particular neighborhood, a level of support for aging parents, a standard of living that everyone has quietly adjusted to. None of that can be reversed without pain. The marriage is now running on one person never getting too tired, too sick, too financially unstable, or too emotionally checked out. That is not a partnership. That is a single point of failure with two people living inside it. Sure, the obvious damage is financial, less savings, less room to breathe, more stress sitting on one person's chest. You can see all of that on a bank statement. What you cannot see is the damage that actually changes the marriage. When a person has options, they make decisions based on what they want. When a person has no options, they make decisions based on what they cannot afford to lose. Those are two different ways of moving through life. And over years, they produce two different people inside the same house. Watch the behavior, not the words. The paying partner stops opening job listings because seeing them creates a feeling they cannot do anything with. They check work messages at dinner. They do not take the full sick day when they should. They postpone their own doctor visits. They say yes to projects they do not want because the household already priced in that yes. They feel a small flash of something that looks like anger when their spouse says, "I just need some space to figure things out," because space is something they stopped being able to afford years ago. The other partner, still operating under the old setup, keeps making decisions based on preference. What would I enjoy? What would I like to try? What feels right for me? These are not selfish questions. They are the questions a person asks when their life still has slack in it. The problem is that inside the same marriage, only one person still has that slack, and it is being paid for by the other one. This is where the marriage starts to feel unequal, even before either person knows how to put it into words. They still care about each other. They are just responding to different realities. Now, after enough years, the paying partner stops being able to imagine a different life. Not because they stopped wanting one, but because all the energy it would take to imagine one has already been spent keeping this one running. The partner paying for everything is rarely paying only with money. They are paying with rest they cannot take, with risks they cannot afford, with years spent holding up a household that was supposed to be held up by two. Money is the part you can see on a statement. Everything else gets charged to an account nobody's tracking until it runs empty. The couple thinks they are fighting about tiredness, resentment, distance. They are not. They are fighting the shape of a household that has been leaning on one person for years, through splits that looked fair and decisions that felt temporary. The household has turned one adult into the system keeping everyone else stable, And once a marriage gets to that point, the question is no longer who pays more. The question is how long that person can keep carrying what two adults were supposed to build together. If this gave you a way of seeing things you didn't have before, this is what I do on this channel. I map out the hidden systems shaping your marriage and your money. Most of what's really driving your relationship isn't visible until someone lays it out. That's every video here. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.